Sometime in 2025, Cambricon's finance team published numbers that no Chinese artificial intelligence chip company had ever posted before. Revenue up 453% year-on-year, as reported by the company. Product line sold out. First domestic artificial intelligence chip designer to turn a profit. On paper, that is the story everyone was watching for. The Nvidia rival, finally in the black. But sold out has two meanings, and only one of them belongs on a victory lap. The word you need to hold on to is ceiling. It will be back. Here's the flip. Sold out in consumer electronics means you won. Sold out in semiconductors with a fabrication cap attached is a different sentence entirely. It can mean demand is solved and supply is structural. Those are not the same achievement, and the gap between them is where this story actually lives. What Cambricon's numbers reveal is where the real race has always been running, and it is not at the layer anyone was watching most closely. Think of a restaurant that just cleared its first annual profit after years of losses, except every table is booked 6 months out, and the kitchen can only seat 40 people a night. Demand is no longer the problem. The problem is the room. Cambricon did not run out of customers, it ran out of wafers. In chip markets, sold out signals one of two things: a demand surge or a production ceiling. Cambricon's case, per report citing wafer allocation at China's leading domestic foundry as a limiting variable, is the second kind. Wafer allocation at a given process node is zero-sum. Every silicon disk that foundry schedules for Cambricon is one it cannot schedule for the next company in the queue, and the queue is long. Picture a silicon disk, roughly the diameter of a dinner plate. Every chip Cambricon shipped started as a slice of one of those plates. The entire output of the most advanced process node available in China in a given quarter fits in a room, not a warehouse, a room. That room has to serve an entire industrial ecosystem. The ceiling is not ambition. The ceiling is physics and scheduling. This reframes the earnings report entirely. The revenue ceiling is not Cambricon's sales force or its chip architecture. It is the number of dinner plate-sized silicon disks China's leading foundry can print per quarter at the nodes Cambricon actually needs. So the obvious question is, why not find more capacity elsewhere? The answer requires understanding what the words advanced node mean inside China right now. And this is the part that rarely gets said plainly. Cambricon's chip design capability is credibly demonstrated by the product reaching market and attracting enterprise buyers. The architecture problem, at least at the nodes domestically available, appears substantially solved. The company can draw the silicon. That is not a small thing. It took years under pressure to get there, and the export restrictions on chip design tools made it harder. But harder is not the same as impossible, and Cambricon's existence as a profitable entity is the evidence. What the design success exposes is the next layer. The process node gap between China's leading domestic foundry and the world's leading contract manufacturer is at least one major generation. By analysts' estimates, possibly two. Designing a chip is like finishing a recipe. The recipe is done. The farm that grows the key ingredient is the problem. I want to be direct about what this means. The export controls did not stop China from learning to design competitive artificial intelligence chips. They may have slowed the timeline, but a profitable, sold-out domestic chip company is evidence that the design embargo was never the decisive layer. It was always fabrication. The wall didn't stop the architecture work, it pushed it forward. Which brings us to the ceiling, and the irony that runs through this whole story. China's most advanced domestic foundry is the primary, realistic option for Cambricon's production, given that Taiwan's and South Korea's leading foundries are inaccessible under current export restrictions. But that foundry's capacity expansion is itself constrained. Advanced lithography machines from the Dutch equipment maker that produces the world's most capable systems are under export restriction. Without those machines, scaling the most capable process nodes requires an older category of equipment run through a technique called multi-patterning, printing the same layer multiple times to achieve finer features. It works. It is slower, more expensive, and yields fewer chips per wafer. But it is a workaround, and reports suggest it is being used. The strategic irony is precise. The restriction on Nvidia chips built Cambricon. The restriction on advanced lithography equipment now caps how fast Cambricon can scale. Ceiling. The wall did not disappear, it relocated upstream. Designing a chip without fab capacity is like holding the blueprints for a bridge while the steel mill is on a ration. The engineering is finished. The industrial base is the race. Before this hardens into a clean narrative of triumph, 3 counterarguments deserve honest weight. First, the numbers are self-reported. Chinese technology firms have a documented history of revenue figures that do not survive independent audit. Until third-party verification exists, 453% growth should be held carefully. Profitable on what accounting standard, over what cost base, with what depreciation treatment? None of that is public. Second, sold out at a price point. Below Nvidia does not mean performance parity. Reports suggest Cambricon's current products serve inference workloads and specific training tasks well, but no independent benchmark places them at the level of Nvidia's top-tier training accelerators for frontier model work. Who is buying and for what task matters enormously. Third, the node gap is not closing on a short timeline. Multi-patterning on older equipment is a real technique, but it is a physics and economics problem as much as a political one. Reaching the leading edge without the most advanced lithography is, at minimum, a multi-year project. Some analysts say considerably longer. Taken together, Cambricon is a real company with real revenue and real customers, and the profitability claim is plausible even if unverified. But the ceiling metaphor is precise. This is not a story about China pulling even with Nvidia. It is a story about China solving the first problem well enough to expose the second one in sharp relief. Nvidia's position was never just its chip architecture, it was the combination of hardware, a software ecosystem deep enough that developers build careers inside it, and volume production at the world's leading foundry. Cambricon has addressed the architecture layer. The software ecosystem gap remains large, and no independent evidence suggests the developer tooling approaches the depth of what Nvidia built over 2 decades. That gap does not close by posting a profit. My honest read. The people who declared China permanently locked out of competitive artificial intelligence chips were wrong, and Cambricon's balance sheet is the evidence. The people who now declare China has solved the problem are also wrong. One layer is solved. The ceiling moved. That is not a failure, but it is also not a finish line. Cambricon's profitability is the most concrete proof yet that export controls function as industrial policy for the target country, not just as a restriction. China didn't get Nvidia. It built something else, under constraint, and that something else just posted a profit. The restriction didn't contain the industry, it drew a map. Cambricon followed that map to profitability. The map now points at the foundry, and SMIC is already working on it. The ceiling isn't fixed, it has just moved to a harder floor. If SMIC cracks advanced node yield at scale without the most capable lithography machines, through multi-patterning or something we have not yet seen, does the export control strategy need a complete rethink, or was buying time always the actual goal? Tell me what you think below. If this kind of inside layer analysis is what you're here for, subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel runs the numbers that the headlines skip.